Like super important. Listen, ladies, like you're not going to grow healthy, beautiful hair on your head if you're like eating poverty calories. It's not going to do it for you.
I gotta get myself a little more faith, a little more love.
I'm your host, Christa Bigler, and I'm going to guess we have at least one thing in common, that we're both in pursuit of a less stressed life. On this show, I'll be interviewing experts and sharing clinical pearls from my years of practice to support high-performing, health-savvy women in pursuit of abundance and a less stressed life. One of my beliefs is that we always have options for getting the results we want, so let's see what's out there together.
All right, today on The Less Stressed Life, I have Danielle Kepics, who has a unique background for which she's known as a unicorn in the women's health space, as a certified fertility educator, a master's level mental health therapist, a certified nutrition coach, and in a prior life spent 5 years as a personal trainer. After 10 years practicing conventional medicine, she shifted her focus and pursued her functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, where she now helps women and some men optimize their health through lifestyle and deep dives into their health. I think I forgot the other piece, which is that you're a physician's assistant. I just missed that in there. I think that's right here. So
yeah, I'm still, yeah, you're good. I'm still technically licensed. I'm not practicing yet. Yeah.
She specializes in helping women understand where they are and helps guide them to see the steps that they need to take to where they want to be and feel the way they want to feel. And today, I can't wait to talk to her about her own hair loss journey, something that makes women crazy. I work with women with skin, and I will tell you, skin and hair makes women crazy, right? Because there's a lot we have tied up into that. So welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thanks for having me. I love when other people have me on their podcast and I don't have to think about asking the questions or anything.
I love it. I was just complimenting her on how good her hair looks. I figured since we're talking about hair, I probably should do my hair today. If you get to watch this on video, congratulations. But yes, this is not how things were. You went through a hell of a journey. I know it was like making you crazy. Tell us your story about why you did such a deep dive on hair.
Dude, so this was quite the journey. So I've always been, I don't want to say healthy on accident, because I want to say I've been healthy on purpose. I've dedicated a lot of my life to continually being a healthy human. And I've never had any hair issues. I've never struggled with my hair falling out, like nothing, no issues. And so the lead up to this was really that my whole life has been stressful. Like I swear, it's been like one thing after another, from childhood and trauma and just a lot of things, and which is just important to know with the backstory about the hair. But really the last 2 years leading up to before the hair loss started, I was working on starting my business to get out of conventional medicine. So really I was working like 2 full-time jobs. If anyone out there has ever been working full-time in a 40-hour-a-week gig as a healthcare practitioner, and also working on like building a program and building my way out of conventional medicine and building my business, I am very much a self-built human. Like no one handed me anything kind of thing. So there's been a lot of hard work and dedication, as with a lot of us. So lots and lots of stress leading up to that. And then the last day at my old job, at my job in conventional medicine, I was working in family practice as a PA. And I was like, man, I'm not feeling good. I'm just like, I'm sweating. Like, it's just like everywhere. I'm like, I have back sweat. Like, what the hell is going on here? This is not normal for me. And so I had told my medical assistant, I was like, can you like swab my nose? I think I might have COVID or the flu. This was circa like 2023. So you're just trying to get out of here. Be doing your job. And I'm like, listen, I ain't complaining. Send me home, kind of thing. But anyways, they swabbed my nose and I was positive for COVID and flu. So I was like, I'm going out with the bed. Peace out, guys. See you later. And I left my job that day. And a couple of months later, I started noticing that my hair was just falling out in droves, which aligns with that post-febrile, which just means after a fever, post-febrile hair loss. I was like, oh, okay. Like I'd never actually had a fever in my whole life. Like fever, like if I ever got sick, it was like 99, like real low grade, but I had the 101 point something, whatever degree temperature. And so I was like, all right, like this is just post-febrile hair loss, but then it just persisted for a long time. And then I started to notice that it wasn't just hair loss. It was this weird breakage. It was straight, like 1/2 an inch long, 4 inches long. I'm like, oh my God, my hair just cannot survive. Like what the hell is going on? And so that was where that journey all started. I don't know how much you want me to go into or if you have questions that you want to probe at within that.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk a little bit about so you had flu and COVID, but there's some other things, pneumonia, UTI, et cetera, like anything.
Yeah.
I think I was going through, Danielle has a hair loss guide. It's lovely. And so I think that UTI is definitely something we could accidentally overlook as a potential fever reason. So I just wanted to point that out. So how long did you deal with this? And where before you were like, because there are some times where people lose hair where it's a little more normal, like a little bit after giving birth, right? There's a lot of changes going on. Like yours was you had not given birth, right?
No.
And so what happened next? You're noticing this 2 months after this. And then what happened?
Yeah. So the issue with this is that there were a lot of factors converging all at once. Like for one, I was not going to work anymore and I was spending more time in my home. So I'm like, is this environmental? And then my boyfriend, because he does jujitsu and stuff, had tinea and my head was itching. Like the itch that my head had, it was, my hairdresser was like, you have excoriations all through your scalp. Like I was digging, like it was awful. So is it tinea? Do I have a mold toxicity in my house that like, I just wasn't spending as much time here and I'm super healthy. So did that kind of overshadow things and like compensate for it? I don't know what you think, but to me, like sometimes mold can present differently in like really healthy
100%.
people. Yeah. So I was like, okay, is it mold? Is it tinea? Is this post-febrile stuff? Is it this? Is it whatever? And so I'm running all of these tests like total toxin, GI map, full blood work panels. I'm going to the dermatologist. I had to beg to have a biopsy of my scalp done because this doctor was like, but your scalp like looks normal. And I was like, okay, you want to throw a steroid at me, so something's not normal. So let me just tell you, my butt is not leaving your chair until you cut a piece of my scalp off and send it out for pathology. And it just stinks because I'm very forward and I'm very blunt and I can be very aggressive. And so for me,
And
doing
you worked
things
in
like
healthcare,
that,
so you are capable of advocating. Yeah, you're like, actually, I know you have, if I'm persistent enough and I know what to request, I know you're going to. Right.
Yes. And so that was like a whole other story in and of itself. I just can only imagine being a human who doesn't have that knowledge and background and also my personality traits to be like, listen here, dude. So the biggest thing for me was determining, okay, what is this? So I had decided I had done some research and found out that you can actually have tinea on your head, tinea capitis, which is just, it's a fungal infection. It's a ringworm for people who know the term. You can actually have ringworm on your head with no rash. Bizarre. Like, I'm like, how did I not know this? First of all, I never worked in dermatology. It's not my thing. But I was like, this is very strange. So I treated myself with 8 weeks of an oral antifungal, which really, to get to the head, you have to. That's the prescribed duration typically. And to preface all of this, I do not like to take medication. And I'm also not one of those people who is so far like into the holistic space that I'm like, I'm never taking a medication, I will die. Like that is also not, I'm very much in that gray and nuanced space, but if I can avoid it, I really will. Like I'm not taking an antibiotic at the first sniffle kind of thing. And so I was like, screw this, I'm taking the antifungal. And I would say my itching reduced by about 70%. And by this time, I had lost probably half the hair volume on my head. It was, you can like, I have very healthy hair. It was just like dry and dull and it looked scraggly and it was very distressing. And I didn't realize, I sound very vain and I don't think that I'm necessarily like a super vain person. I don't wear a ton of makeup. I don't get my hair dyed, like lots of these things. And so anyways, I have 80% improvement in this itching, but I'm like, it's still breaking. And the thing with hair and skin and anything really with health, it's like you have to wait. So I would try something and then I would have to wait to see if it worked. I'm changing products. I'm doing this. I'm putting filters on my shower head. I'm making sure we had our water softener changed because our water softener had broke somewhere in that process. And anyway, so about at the point that I had the biopsy on my head, it was about 18 to 19 months into this journey. I really did not want to take oral steroids. Number one, they make me feel like garbage. They give me very awful anxiety and I'm not a very
anxious person.
Yeah, I'm just not like that. Like I'm very high energy, but I would not call I don't have trouble falling asleep, like none of that typical anxiety stuff. And so I started working with a trichologist who actually just applied to join the collaborative, who's friends with Laura. And I was like, listen, I don't know what's going on. And so simultaneously, she was finishing her studies as a trichologist. and she's presented my case, and I had got the biopsy, I had got the results. They're like, it's normal. There's just some perifollicular inflammation and a little bit of bacteria, but normal result. And I'm like, those things don't say normal to me. Can you explain it to me? And doctors don't really like when you question them about things like that. This guy did. I don't think he liked me very much. But I was like, this doesn't sound normal to me. And so Jess and I, my trichologist, she had me buy I should have got it for this episode, but like this little microscope that you take pictures of your scalp. And I had it was red and angry. And the amount of sebum that was there, she was like, your scalp is not healthy. And so what we had decided, what people were like, okay, what was actually causing it, lady? So what Jess and I determined between the biopsy and all of the information is that through years of stress, being someone who was a every 5-day wash girly, which is not good for my scalp personally with how much I sweat and the things that I do in the climate that I live in, etc. And then the fever was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And so I had all of this inflammation going on. I still think I had tinea just because of how much the ringworm, because of how much the antifungal really reduced that itching at first. Like it's something, right? So it was like, I got like steamrolled, man. It was so awful. But we decided to finally do the steroids. Laura will tell you, she calls me full send Kepics. And when I do something, I do it. Listen, we don't do things 50% over here, okay? So I got a topical solution steroid, and then I also took oral steroids as well. And I would say
this is after
everything.
After the oral antifungal. Because I was thinking you would have taken the oral antifungal after the biopsy as well. But you said the biopsy was 18 months.
Big difference in time. So there's about a year between when I took the antifungal and when I went to have the biopsy done. So this is a long duration. Yeah, I get what you mean. But no, I had taken the antifungal, had the biopsy done about a year later, trying things all in between here, screwing with the water softener, the different pellets or whatever it is that you put in those. My boyfriend installed a filter on the shower head. I changed my hair products like twice, I think. And then we had finally just decided that it was just all of this like lifetime of stress, not washing my hair enough. The fever is the thing that like kicked everything overboard. And that's when I decided to I was like, okay, like between Jess and I, she's not a doctor, but she was like, you might want to consider something for that inflammation kind of thing. I did the topical, I did the oral steroids, and about 6 to 8, might have been longer than that, but I was getting my hair cut. There was one point where it was growing like 3 inches every 6 weeks. So I'm like, my hair something's healthy. Mm-hmm. And I would say about 2 to 3 months, it was about 3 months after I started, in 3 haircuts later, I started seeing a lot of reduction in the breakage. And now I'm seeing like 1 to 2 pieces when I brush my hair. Christa, I had sinkfuls of hair. It was so distressful. And the microscope was very interesting. Jess had me doing all this. I have a 12-step scalp routine now. And she had said, women don't really realize like you need to treat your scalp like you treat your skin. And most people are not doing that. And so I'm doing this exfoliation and moisturizer and deep conditioning and all of this stuff with the products that she had recommended.
To be a woman, right?
Yeah. Yes. 2 years later, I finally feel like we are way over the hump at this point and on the other side. But man, I don't know that I've been through a lot of stressful things, but as far as distressing to my health, because I'm like, okay, why is this happening? And why am I not healthy enough to keep my hair on my head? Like I feel good. I'm sleeping. I eat more than enough nutrient dense food. Like
key point.
All of these. Yeah. Like super important. Listen, ladies, like you're not going to grow healthy, beautiful hair on your head if you're like eating poverty calories. It's not going to do it for you.
Sorry, some of the terms, good stuff.
I have a lot of analogies. I love analogies because most people get that. That makes sense to them. Oh, poverty calories. If I'm dieting, like I'm not going to grow hair on my head. Yeah. And so that was, I think, the most distressing part to me is what's wrong with me. And then at one point, I really started freaking out about my home. Do we have a mold illness? Because
what did you find on your testing?
So I did have some like stuff show up on my total tox test, which like most people have something. I've not seen anyone with a listen, if you have a totally clean total tox burden, I want to talk to you. What are you doing?
Yeah, no one.
And then what are your cortisol levels like to achieve that 0 tox burden? Like I had some ochratoxin and some other things. Like there was no black mold and like some higher, I can't remember at this point. I don't have the test in front of me.
It was a reasonable rabbit hole because your boyfriend was also doing the fungal stuff. And I'll mention, as you already said, and so I want to ask about the biopsy because of things I've heard from interviewing other practitioners. Okay, so what we generally agree about in the research is that most from the shoulders up is fungal origin, right? Like there's specific fungal strains that really thrive. Malassezia overall as a fungal family really thrives from the shoulders up.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like usually when you're itchy on the head, and I work with skin, I wouldn't say like hair accidentally gets folded in here sometimes. I am not a hair expert. I have been on my own hair journey, which is why this conversation is more fun for me. Don't worry, we're getting there. All the things. And I'm still learning a lot. And so I'm going to share some of the things that I was dealing with. And so anyway, I love that you said, hey, and we can recap this timeline a little bit too. So you just did 8 weeks of, and you have this prescriber feedback, which is really cool because I remember this one case that kind of haunted me. She was definitely having something fungal where she was losing her hair on her head, but until she got the exact right medication, it was like, it did not work at that time. And this was years ago. So I've gotten better. There was a time where I used to refer out more for prescription antifungals for different reasons. And now I will typically use herbs. And you just gave me a time that's like very similar to herbal, to be honest, with that medication. And it's just interesting. I just find it interesting and supportive because it's like you didn't really have something that was like, yeah, I have fungus on my head necessarily, but you were like, I'm going to try this. And you actually had to stay the course. I'm wondering how long it took you to see reduction in shade. I'd love to ask timelines because I have feelings about timelines. When do you think the itching reduction started? I know I'm asking you to go into the recesses of your mind right now. But
Yeah, I would say about a month after I completed the antifungal. So
that's a really long time. That was 12 weeks
months.
later. That was 3 months because usually I feel like you can start to see a little improvement after about a month of being on enough protocol. And so I'm just curious what yours was. Okay, so that was all before you did the biopsy. Apparently you can do more. And so this is fun. And it's been years. But when I've interviewed different derms, they will say usually the bacterial biopsy is more accurate, but the fungal biopsies are really not accurate. So when they biopsied, were they looking at just bacteria?
I think they looked at everything.
I wonder, honestly. I would be so curious
I would
to know if did they actually even look at fungus. And I've discarded how much it matters because I was told by a specialty derm the fungal biopsies are not accurate. And this is all fine and dandy, but what I'm also gathering is like you did a bunch of testing and you still had to go with like your history and how your response was no matter what. Okay, so I was curious about the biopsy. I want to talk more about breakage. And so you did the antifungal, your itching is better after about 3 months, but really you're still having breakage for a while.
Yes.
You do the biopsy. When do you start working with Jess, the person who's finishing her trichology, which we've had 1 or 2 trichologists on the show over the years. We'll try to make sure we're linking those in the show notes because we talk in those episodes, I know specifically about the hair phases, which Danielle and I said, not her jam, not my jam, but that's would answer why someone loses hair a little bit with postpartum and different growth phases and things. But anyway, back to breakage. When did you start working with your trichologist in the timeline?
I want to say it was August of 2024. Sorry.
So after the biopsy.
Yes. I had the biopsy about 4 weeks later. So it was like almost simultaneous.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So then we're doing breakage. So we're going to talk about breakage and then we'll jump into some other things that people could consider, meds, some other functional causes, which you've highlighted in your story, and then scalp loss. So we'll just kind of run through those because one thing I'm taking from this conversation as you're talking about your hair story also is that I find this with skin. It's like we want it to be so easy. We want it to be really topical and it's really double the work. It's like topical and internal, and your story 100% validates that statement, I would say. And hair is really slow because you're waiting, as you said. You're waiting. So it's tough. So thank God for trichologists. Anyway, okay, so you're having breakage. I also did not realize like how significant this was for me. And I have extremely hard water and I have lots of, basically you start to like figure things out very slowly on your own. You're like, ooh, maybe this hard water is creating this and this. And I like watch my daughters also, like I have one daughter in college. She's living abroad now, but it's like she's growing out her hair. So I'm like, anyway, the hard water, meaning what does hard water mean? Maybe high in calcium, maybe high in manganese. For me, I was seeing obscene amounts of iron in our hair tissue mineral analysis between my husband and I, like to a concerning level, honestly.
Interesting.
And I think it comes from our cabin is in a place where the soil is red and the water. I haven't gone down this summer I'm going to spend a deep dive on water testing because I started it a while ago, and you know how you can't focus on all the things? And
Yes.
And it can be so much. And it's if I just had an unlimited budget to try it, but it's really, what do I want to know? I want to know the hardness. I want to know the microbes. There's layers of what I want to know. So how can I figure that out? Because I've done straight up water testing on my home in the past, and it was like anticlimactic. It was like your biopsy results. It's like, looks normal-ish. There's a little something here, but looks normal. And I'm like, I actually need to know like what the iron level is compared to these in these two different places. Anyway, so I share that because that's been part of my breakage journey as really hard water. I want to hear some of the things that came up. And I know you had some of the same exact experiences, and people are going to want to know, Danielle, what water filter did you put on? And I want to offer, before you even reply, that I've been looking, like, as this iron issue, I'm like, there's not really a water filter besides a water softener that filters iron that I can find.
Interesting.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. So to answer your question about what water filter, I'm going to have to look at my Amazon account. To be honest with you, my boyfriend purchased it, and he said it was just the one with the smallest, like that filtered the most stuff.
Did you feel like it made a difference? Because I have a few
I
brands.
do.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a few brands, and you could notice just a little bit, but
yeah, I also live in the desert. So I live in St. George, Utah. I should preface that. So Sahara, dry, so dry here. So I do feel like that made a difference, replacing our water softener. So if you have a water softener, make sure it's working. And then also, I know that there are like people have different types of pellets or whatever the chunks are that people with actual water softener materials. I don't even know what they're called. That's so terrible.
Usually it's salt. That's why it's interesting. So I don't know. I don't have that. I have some weird filter for the whole home now, but
yes. And that's
I won't
like,
talk about it because it's like I'm still discerning all the things around it.
yeah. And that's where I would like to go with our home, is just like having a whole home water filter, to be really honest with you. That's probably the next step. But as far as the breakage goes, the water softener, I feel like made a difference. I feel like everything I did made a difference, but it wasn't until I took those steroids, unfortunately, that everything just stopped. But the breakage was, I don't know what you want me to exactly go in with that, but it was so distressing because I was like, why isn't my hair healthy enough? And the other thing that my trichologist and I had thought too was like, maybe I would have been someone who was losing my hair, but because I was so healthy and I take such good care of myself, that it's like how we say people who do that, like mold looks differently in them because they just don't feel as shitty as like some other people might, right?
Yeah, that's the whole bucket theory.
Right. And so my hair was able to grow, but then it just wasn't able to, it was like, I'm going to let go now. It's Jack and Rose with the Titanic, or like Plaza on the ledge, you know? Point of no return, where it was like, what? So I do think that was something that was actually going on in that process. I don't have any evidence for that. Neither does Jess. You know what I mean? But we're, in what we postulated, we just thought, hey, could this actually be, I was still actually suffering from post-febrile hair loss. Like it just wasn't recovering because of how inflamed the pictures. Like I started to learn because I continued to send Jess pictures of what my scalp looked like. And when I say my scalp, you could see the individual hair follicles. This microscope's $30 on Amazon. If people are wondering, like, where did you get this like high tech thing? And nope, it was just a $30 microscope on Amazon, y'all. She started telling me like what the difference looks like. And you could actually see at the beginning, like an inch down, like my hair you could see the splitting starting to happen. I would have, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
that's why
you could see the weak point.
To think about it being a topical thing or something that where your products, or where that's why I was thinking about the hard water, or even washing, would really make. And obviously, usually the suggestions you will get was like silk pillowcase, loose hair tie, like all these things, because you can break your hair really easily.
Yes,
with force.
And I did all of those things also.
Right. But this is way down at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it was at various points, but when I would stick the microscope on my head, you could inadvertently see like other things in there. And she would circle it and send it back to me and show me like, this is what's happening to your hair. This doesn't look normal. This is what looks normal, kind of thing. And you could just see like the hair was like narrowing. It was really very interesting to see. And also distressing.
Yeah. And what I'll mention is you did the steroids. How long, what was the timeline on that?
So I did a Medrol dose pack. So it was 5 days. I want to say, yeah. And so I did an over-the-counter topical. It's called Scalpicin or Scalpsacin or something like that. Listen, a little bit of dyslexia. I pronounce things awfully. But you can buy it over the counter. And so that did help. And so that was another kind of clue in the puzzle that maybe I should be doing like the full strength prescription topical. So I did a topical solution for 2 weeks, and then I did the 5-day Medrol dose pack.
Because I work with people who are on or trying to get off or whatever steroids all the time. So I'm intrigued by the timeline and the exact what you did. The over the counter, we do that with skin too. It's if you need to sleep, we use the tools at our disposal. Because I'm like you, I'm right in the middle. And what I'll offer there, one good thing is you'd already done a lot of work. What happens for a lot of people that show up in my virtual office is that they come off steroids and like obviously they're not really seeing a change because it's just taking batteries out of the fire alarm. In your case, you had done a bunch of other things. So it sounds like maybe after that fact, you were actually able to draw a little bit of a line in the sand or see maybe some changes. I don't know. As far as we can tell, it was a long journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so breakage. We'll come back to scalp health a little bit, but let's talk about bigger picture. So this story hopefully has been super helpful just hearing about things for me. And I actually want to share a little bit about some things I had discerned through as well. I know this is years in the making because you talk about getting haircuts a lot. I would cut my hair like twice a year and I wasn't super particular about it. I was like very like whatever. And so I would get my haircut, and I remember it was like my neighbor's sister who was home from a Veda school in Arizona. She came over to trim my kid's hair, and then she trimmed my hair. And she's like, wow, whoever cut your hair recently cut it really uneven. This was years ago. And long story short, I started going in more often to do different things. And what I found was like, I actually was growing unevenly out the front, like for years. And my hairdresser's, I have no idea. And I'm like, I probably have a brain tumor, obviously, is what my brain thinks. And I'm like, I'm not going down that road. I'm not going to get a Pronuvo scan because I'll inevitably have something based on my family history.
I like how you strayed to Pronuvo also, but
I was talking to a past client who had just done it, so it's fresh on my mind. And I have mentally decided I'm not going to do that right now because I know. I think when you go looking for things, we're always going to find things. And I'm like, there are things I just don't. My mom literally had a brain tumor and it was huge. And the doctor was like, wow, I've never pulled out such a large brain tumor before. It was years ago. I was like, so I don't really need this. Of course, that's why my brain goes to that. So anyway, ultimately, I learned more about like lymph congestion in this area, and I start really, and could I do a lot better? I like really have done a lot around like scalp congestion that I didn't realize needed to be done with different like exfoliants as well. And I'm like, oh wow, it's finally like evening out. And every time I go to the hair salon now, my hair isn't 2 inches longer on one side. I was like, oh, thank God. I think we're making progress 2 years in, similarly.
yes.
Right? And so I'm also full send already going to get the microscope ordered after this and ring up Jess to get started because I'm like, I feel like I could really learn some extra cool things. But I think also scalp health, this whole topic. Okay. I know I want to come back to scalp health.
No,
but
good.
Just sharing. You don't realize
that's
what you
super
don't
interesting.
realize.
And also, like, the scalp is so vascular too, so people don't realize like you need to promote blood flow to that area. There's a reason why, like, when you get a cut in your head, you only have to have your sutures in for 3 to 5 days, as opposed to other areas of the body. The further you get away, the less blood flow there is there, the longer, because it just takes longer to heal, right?
And why you bleed like a Michael Myers movie.
Yes.
I remember my oldest she was in a water balloon fight at a summer camp one time and ran into the side of the building. And I came to the scene. I was like, oh, gosh.
So much blood.
It's hard to look at right now. Like, if someone else help, please. Okay. So scalp health.
Yeah.
I want to circle us out at the end with some tactical things around scalp health. But I want to talk about some other areas that you're a specialist in, which I'd like to think so because you prescribed medications. You want to cover a little bit about meds and secondary hair loss. Like, what meds do we see hair loss as a potential side effect, and at what timeline the most?
Yeah. I don't know the timeline off of my head. I'm not actually sure of that. And I would think that it might be different with different medications. So one of the biggest ones that stands out to me is like anti-seizure meds like valproic acid, phenytoin. I actually had a client who I was working with probably 6 months ago. It was like right around the time that I was going through a lot of this. And she had been put on, I can't remember which anti-seizure medication, but for headaches.
I was wondering. I was like, what are the other indications for these medications? Because this sounds familiar, but not for
headaches, nerve pain. There's all kinds of off-label use type things for this. And so she was having all of this hair loss, and she was still having a little bit when I had last talked to her. But I was like, when did you stop that medication? And when did your hair loss start slowing down? And she goes, oh my gosh. It's like this light bulb just went off for her. But some of these anti-seizure medications can also, like, a lot of the times medications can play a role in like absorption of nutrients too, and also just have interactions that can cause or contribute to nutrient deficiencies, right? Like I don't want to create like fear around things for people either. But folate, vitamin D, B vitamins are some big ones that in general, some of these medications can cause problems with, which also play a big role in our hair and even skin, which we can talk about that in relation to scalp. But other popular ones, birth control is a big one. And part of the reason for this is because most people don't know this, but there are 5 different generations of progestins. So when you take a combined synthetic hormone birth control pill, there is ethinyl estradiol, which is a synthetic form of estrogen, and then there is a progestin. So this is not progesterone. And so what the progestin is the synthetic form of progesterone, but many of these generations, and I can't remember, I think it's 3 through 5. I think it's the newer generations. I think levonorgestrel is one, which is, I think, what is in the IUD. I think, don't quote me on that because I don't want to put out misinformation out there. So check and look if you're listening to this and you're curious, but they are more chemically similar to testosterone than they are progesterone. You know, when gynecologists are out there being like, let's give you the birth control pill to treat your PCOS, which is a high androgen state for many women, not all of them, but for many of them, right?
Meaning higher testosterone.
Yes. And now we're just like making it worse by giving them this medication that is chemically more similar in the organic structure to testosterone than it is actual progesterone. So that is how birth control can do it. Birth control also causes, we know, a number of nutrient deficiencies, specifically B vitamins. And the other big one I would say is actually serotonin plays like more than I thought in our hair health. I was so surprised. This was something that I learned when I was researching for the hair guide. I was like, this is bizarre. But selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds can potentially contribute. Steroids, levothyroxine, which is a thyroid medication. It's so many people who struggle with that.
Why does that? What's the mechanism?
I think it has to.
That's fine.
I think it has to do with the potential nutrient deficiencies that it can contribute to. I'm not sure off the top of my head. It's in the hair guide and I researched it for the hair guide, but I don't know off the top of my head. But steroids were another one, long-term steroid use, which I'm not sure of the mechanism there, but I'm sure steroids just wreak havoc on your entire body when you stay on them long-term. So these people with like autoimmune diseases that are on like higher dose steroids and things like that, I can only imagine what that's causing. And there were some other ones too, like Coumadin, which is a blood thinner, beta blockers, which is a hypertension medication. We see beta blockers given for anxiety also as well, which is a whole other topic of conversation of like, why are we doing this to people? And a lot of them are thinner women who don't have very high blood pressure to begin with. So now we're getting dizzy and we're passing out. Anyways, I'm like opening a whole other case. You're like,
oh yeah, that'll be part two of ways we're screwing over women with anxiety. Carry on. I was actually just looking at the levothyroxine, and it may be associative because when you said low thyroid function impacts your hair and some of the other so one underrated conversation is nutrient cofactors related to the thyroid. And whole other episode too, but I'm pretty passionate about this topic. And I always have to be careful when talking about it because for me, I like to, and probably you now too, I'm guessing, I like to catch people way before they have their blood is off of thyroid. And I would just say, look up thyroid symptoms. They're very common. And in general, we should support, my approach is, can we support function of this system by supporting nutrients and cofactors first? And I have found that to be quite impactful and a very good return on investment there. But yeah, whole nother topic going off on thyroid. Sorry, I won't even.
No, you're good.
We're going to try that. But you do bring up water pills as a potential as well. And I do find that one thing, and you didn't write this one down, and maybe it's just because I don't know every med generic versus what the other name for
the brand name versus
the brand
generic,
name. Yeah. Exactly. But I always cringe when I have someone come in who wants to get off spironolactone. I want them to get off spironolactone, but I'm like, oh, this is not fun.
No,
it's not fun.
No.
But one of the reasons many people go on
acne.
Yes, absolutely. They go on for acne. And then also I see a fair bit of like water retention as well. And so going off of that, they're going to see like a complete rebound as well. And I've just seen, I don't know about you, but there's supposed to be often potassium sparing. And I see that they deplete potassium. I see you write it like that.
Interesting.
That's what I see on nutrient results also. It's like what's supposed to happen versus what we really see happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's so interesting. The amount of potassium that we also need, I just think is so high that I think when I wonder if what happens when people get on that, they like look up foods high in potassium, then they start to avoid them, or
no.
who knows? But that's super interesting.
I never really thought that as a prescriber, people do that good of a job to tell people don't eat these things like they do with blood thinners, right?
Yeah.
And that's in nutrition school, we learn, this is what I remember learning, and I think this is noble. It's like, actually, you're not really supposed to restrict all your vitamin K foods. It's just that you should eat a consistent amount. But they're like, it's easier to just tell you not to eat them instead of to just eat a consistent amount of greens. Whatever's easier. I'm working with depressed. Well, there's reasons that they've arrived at that conclusion, probably. So I'll just say that.
Yes.
Okay. So lots of meds can result in hair loss. And the reason I asked you about timeline is because I might consider that it would be latent, right? Is what I would guess after the fact, because it's going to kick in and then hair is going to be really downstream. You describe it as like hair's luxury. It's like disposable income. So it's not a priority. And I feel that way pretty much about a lot of function. I feel that way generally about sex hormones too.
I say that about ovulation too. It's a luxury item.
Yeah. It doesn't have to happen if your body is actually need to preserve your life instead.
Yes.
And I just will highlight before we go on to just listing some functional causes of gain at what we need to look at inside the body and we might look at as clinicians. But even in your story, it's so hard to reduce when you're sitting here, stress is the cause of so much. And here I am in this very stressful state of hair loss. It's real cute. It's a real, it's 22 we have, isn't it?
It's super great.
Yeah, it's a fun time. And also makes you a better clinician when you have been there. You just almost understand things a little bit.
I also think real quick about like the causes, like with the medications and stuff. I do think like all of this is a bucket, right? If your life is going great and you don't have a lot of stress and you're not getting sick all the time and you're using great products and your water is great, like your medication probably isn't going to affect you the way that it, for my client who had thyroid issues and like all this other stuff going on and potential toxins and things like that, it really is a cumulative effect, in my opinion, and at least in my personal experience and also what I've seen with the women that I work with.
Totally. And there's a lot to your story. I think probably the most important thing is that you had to do a lot of trial and error too, and it sucked.
Oh, dude, it did. And that's why, like, I'm sure you do the same thing. You tell people that you work with, listen, like, this is not an overnight journey and it's not even a 3-month journey sometimes. Often, most of the people who come to me are in a position that after 6 months, they're doing pretty darn good if they're doing the work. But sometimes it's trial and error, and it's frustrating as the practitioner on the other end. We're like, we're pulling out our hair. We're talking to other practitioners. We're doing the research. We're doing the deep dives. And we're like, man, why is this person still suffering? Like we know that it's your life, but it bothers us too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm an Enneagram 3, so like I used to hinge all of my worth on results, and it was
cool.
My own stress. And you were sitting here talking to Danielle, an Enneagram 8, who's like she's gonna halfway yell at the doctor, my butt's not leaving this seat until you give me a biopsy. Like I'm gonna get literally what I came for. And I always attract certain Enneagram 3s and 8s because of our similar personality traits.
Yes.
I'm like, I just want to acknowledge we have these personality traits, and I'm going to be real honest with you because I know you can handle it.
Yes.
I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff for you. Sorry, girl.
No, please don't. Please don't. It's annoying.
Yeah. Okay, let's just cover a few things. Yeah. If someone came into us, these would be usually the things that we are typically looking at, or these are things I would typically lead with. And you're going to see that these are an overlap of many conditions, right? It's okay, when you support this, everything gets better. So what do you want to say about some functional causes of hair loss that you also
I love this.
Sure.
In past winters, my son has gotten dry hands that can crack and bleed. I found that giving him at least 300 to 600 milligrams of high-quality fish oil really resolves this in a few weeks. This year, I started him on Jigsaw's Alaska cod liver oil because it's the best value for high-quality U.S.-sourced cod liver oil. Just 1 teaspoon gives him 1,000 milligrams of total omega-3s, which just means faster results with nature's natural dose of synergistic vitamin A and D already found in cod liver oil to support immune health. Jigsaw sources their cod liver oil from Alaska, where line-caught fish are flash frozen on the boat. This keeps the fish oil very fresh, so it doesn't require more processing and deodorizing like other fish oils, which can disrupt the oils and nutrients. So when you combine Jigsaw's incredible cod liver oil with some of their other wonderful electrolyte mineral products, it's a winning combination to keep your skin beautifully hydrated year after year. You can get a discount on all of Jigsaw's products, including Alaska Cod Liver Oil, Electrolyte Supreme, Adrenal Cocktail, and Potassium Cocktail, formerly known as pickleball, at jigsawhealth.com with the code LessStressed10, which you can use on each and every order. That's code LessStressed10.
My first and favorite thing to preach about is eating enough nutrient-dense food. And by eating enough nutrient-dense food, I don't mean like that you have to be perfect with your diet. I don't advocate for that for myself or for anyone else. If you've ever looked at my Instagram, you can see videos of me eating chips. I did a whole series on that. But like I said before, hair, we don't need it to survive. So your body's not prioritizing it. And if you are giving your body poverty macros, poverty calories, it's just not going to thrive the way that you want it to. And I attract myself as a client, which is great.
Yes.
And also a pain in my ass too, where it's like they're highly successful type A, high functioning women between the ages of 30 and 50. And 80% of them also work in healthcare. I know my ideal client like 100%. And a lot of them grew up with almond moms or Weight Watchers or dieting, or they were told they were fat, and just all of these awful, horrible things that I read on people's intake forms, right? And so I understand why people struggle. And also society really has pushed the 2,000 calories is enough. And for most, the women that I work with specifically, they're running hard. They're pushing heavy weight. They're doing big badass things and big lives and hiking on the weekends and all this stuff. And I'm like, 2,000 calories just isn't enough. And so if you are losing your hair and you're wondering why, and you're eating less than 2,500 calories a day, I would challenge you to look at that. And not advocating for people calorie counting their entire lives, but most women are. I feel very passionately about that one.
Same.
So as far as looking at like medical causes, I would want people to have a full panel of blood work. So full iron panel, full thyroid panel, hormones. So do you have a PCOS type picture? Is there an autoimmune? Autoimmune is not my first line of things that I would look at. But if we're really pulling our hair, pun intended, after so long, it might be something that I suggest we look at. Chronic infections, EBV, mold, Lyme, nutrient deficiencies are in that same bucket of eating enough. Stress is a big one. People, I know Laura and I are like the queens of like minerals and stress regulation. It really makes a huge difference. If you are chronically under even low grade stress and your hair is falling out, like your body feels that. And it doesn't have to be. Sarah Godfrey does a really great job of talking about the difference between like real stress and perceived stress, and talking about how our bodies don't know the damn difference. And so even if it's something that you're worried about that isn't happening, or it's not a quote unquote real thing going, your body still feels that. So stress is such a huge one. And also under eating is a stressor on your body. So I'm just tying that back in. Gut health is a big one. So if we are unable to absorb the nutrients that we're taking in, I've done hundreds and hundreds of GI maps at this point. So if you are a hot girl IBS girly, number one, not normal. And number two, like it's probably contributing to your nutrient absorption and contributing to that bucket of like, why are you losing hair? Medications we talked about. And then the other thing is just how you're treating your scalp. So is your scalp actually healthy? Then are you doing the things? It's funny, my Oura ring now, like when I'm in the shower, because I'm doing so much scrubbing and I'm bending over, it thinks that I'm doing yoga. Did you just do yoga? No, I was in the shower scrubbing my scalps, man.
It's really funny.
It's hilarious. I screenshot and send it to my trichologist all the time. This is what I like to see.
Yeah. Your Oura ring confusing you for doing yoga while doing your... I just think that is a hilarious picture. So I appreciate you putting that into our heads.
You're all welcome.
It's free.
Yes.
Free picture of Danielle doing hair yoga in the shower. Okay. I think we've covered a little bit of scalp health, but we'll round it out right there around scalp health. So what we talked about, water filter. You talk about why you feel so passionately about haircuts every 3 months.
Oh my God. It's just the health of your hair. Like it weighs you down, all that dry, damaged hair. And also hair length is also a predetermined genetic thing to an extent. I don't want to say it's not all of it. So like your hair gets to that point and it's not going anywhere. But just keeping hair healthy is really, I don't really have a deeper reason for that besides I want to keep my hair healthy. I don't know if you have other things how haircuts contribute to scalp health, because I don't know that actually.
No, I'm not sure. Sometimes we look for the people in our world, which is why I'm like, I should work with your trichologist, because when I talk to my hairdresser, who I love very much, she's really chill and neutral. She's, I don't know what will help. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep on this journey of trying different products and different hair. Yeah. You can let me know if you want to be in our water filtration deep dive this summer, which I have not
here for it
organized, but it seems like you might be interested in this topic.
Yeah. We tested my water too. As a side note, we did do that.
Yeah. Who did you use?
It was just, honestly, it was an Amazon test that Jess recommended. So it wasn't like anything like super, it was just like a quick scan to see, is there anything like major off? There wasn't. It was anticlimactic, just like you said.
Yeah, another thing for another day. And that's the thing, is that you did a lot of trial and error. You did a lot of really good trial and error. And some of it with the fungal thing, it was like, hey, I see this itching. I see this in my boyfriend. So maybe there's something there. I did some testing. But at the end of the day, you still had to use your clinical brain to say, here's our best case explanation. And the good news is we're 100% better than we were. And I do love that the febrile thing, I just think that's really interesting. And I think it is quite timely. It's hard to feel timely anymore post-COVID, but it still feels timely 5 years later. Just tells us how slow we move in medicine, right? It's like, it's still timely 5 years later to talk about how hair loss post-infection, because it still happens, right?
Yeah.
It's still happening. It just seemed like it was happening at a much higher rate at that point. And I think to that end, COVID was such a kind of straw that broke a camel's back for a lot of people. It was just like a little aggressive on the body, causing kind of an inflammatory process in the whole system, which makes general just uses up a ton of nutrients as well.
Yes.
So that's the bottom line, is like most things just use up nutrients, most good and most bad things. So the bad things will, when things are out of balance, it like steals the nutrients, and then you're not putting enough nutrients in, or you're not even digesting, absorbing them. And then the stress and the other things coming into your life, you use those up essentially. So the stressors look like lots of things. So I always say, we're just trying to bring systems back into balance and fill in all the gaps that have been caused that you don't know are there. And that's the thing, I think, in these like highly healthy women, which is usually my client base as well, is you have a very clear picture of health, but there's some things that are off. It's like we operate a little bit more in subtleties. And so I always say, I feel like I operate in symptom specialty instead of, I appreciate blood work. And you've had some really cool, I know because you've shared online, you've had some really cool stories of where blood work was really supportive. In fact, you had a client recently who had cancer, didn't you? Like you sent her for something?
So that wasn't recent. That was a patient who I saw in conventional medicine. She was a PA student. And she just did not feel right. And she was burning the candle hard. Like she was working full time during PA school, which most programs don't even allow you to work, and working out like twice a day. And I'm like, listen, you got to cut this shit out. Like I am who I am. And
are you crazy?
Yes. You're right. And so she came back 12 weeks later and she was like, I still don't feel right. Her thyroid antibodies were through the roof. Her thyroid function, totally normal. It never it would have gone on and on had someone not checked her thyroid antibodies. And she had to fight till it was a whole mess. She had to fight to get a biopsy. And we're like...
And she had thyroid cancer, right?
Yes, she had thyroid cancer. She had a complete thyroidectomy.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I'm always a bit shocked by, you probably have seen this coin flip too. I used to ask people when I would send them in to have their blood drawn, and I don't have this problem too much anymore just because we can support facilitating it for clients. But it's if we were going to help facilitate or help connect people to getting their blood drawn for thyroid or a full thyroid panel, maybe 50, I'm probably being a little conservative, but $50-ish, $10 for antibodies. And I've had people say their insurance has been charged $2,000 for a full thyroid panel. What is this noise? Like
healthcare.
It's not even fathomable. And like, how do we get from $50 to $2,000? I just don't.
I have had people who have insisted on using their insurance and I'm like, you can go to your PCP and have this blood work done, but don't come back to me and yell at me when your bill is $4,000. And it inevitably is. And I'm like, don't say I didn't warn you.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If you could tell people 3 things for loving their scalp, what would you say? Just need that.
Wash your hair probably more frequently than you think you need to. I was an every 5-day hair wash girly for over a decade. And my trichologist was like, you need to wash your hair more. That's not everybody, but for me. So it might be worth working with someone to see what hair wash frequency you need to be using. Number 2, get an exfoliant. I use this. It's actually a men's product from Eufora, EUFORA. I have no affiliation with them, but it's a product that Jess had recommended to me. And I exfoliate my scalp for 15 minutes every week. And it is it's what I'm doing in the shower, just like scrubbing and scrubbing. And the last thing I would say is, for scalp health, I would say put a filter on your shower head. I really do think that,
you might want to put that one in there.
Yes. Also, always eat enough food. I'm perpetually saying that to people. So yes, eat enough nutrient-dense food.
I ran out of my scalp exfoliant a while back and I'm really missing it. And I used one from BRIGE. I don't know how to say it properly or whatever. It had coconut oil in it, so you'd think it would be in like charcoal. It was so good, and like afterwards, just so soft.
Feels so good.
I know. I'm actually missing it, and I was contemplating between the tiny bottle or like the giant mega bottle, but maybe I'll try a new one. So I have
and then
this problem where I always want to try new things.
The Euphora also has, it's part of the men's line, but it's a moisturizer, but it's like this fresh, like it's more than peppermint. And I put that on after I exfoliate and it gives you like a little tingly. It feels so good. It's amazing. Their product, I've really enjoyed their products. I'm still using them.
Yeah, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I hang out mostly on Instagram. It's just at Danielle.Kepics. Nothing fancy. You can find pretty much anything that you want that's linked to me there at my link in bio, or just any of my pin posts or anything like that.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing this saga of a hair story, which is actually, I feel like we learn so much from stories. So hopefully all of our listeners find that. I think we identify with others through stories. So thanks so much for sharing your story today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had so much fun.
Just keep breaking.